Eccentric lifting for building tendon strength. Dr. Tony Huge, Frank of Epic Chiropractic, Dan Sines, Guru Amin, Akash Parnesi, and Kane Bishop. And we all want to know, how do we strengthen our tendons? Because a lot of our fans are taking things like SARMs or steroids, and their muscles are getting very strong very fast, and they're actually having a lot of injuries, a lot of tears, because the tendon strength isn't keeping up with the muscle strength. So how do we build the tendon strength to the same level of muscle strength?
Sure. Okay. The best way to approach this, at least from the scientific, all the studies have pointed towards using eccentric motions, what you guys call negatives, what I call negatives, using more of those throughout your workouts.
Yeah, let's separate concentric to eccentric. Concentric means like contract, concentric.
Sure.
So the muscle contracts. And then eccentric, it's accelerating down. Eccentric. All right.
So with an eccentric, the muscle is actively trying to contract as it lengthens. Whereas concentric, as it's contracting, it's shortening. And with isometric, like posing, it's just contracting but no movement. So that's the terminology we just need to get clear. We're focusing on the eccentric portion because doing the eccentric movement is what's actually going to start training the tendinous insertion to the bone. And if you don't do that, you're going to end up with tendon ruptures or tears down at that area. So
so give me an example of a set. Are you doing the eccentric at the end of the set? Are you doing it during? I mean, you personally, because you know all the science behind this, and you're also a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
So what do you do to build this?
So from a young age, what I started doing was incorporating negatives at the end of my set. So say I was doing an incline bench, right? My training partner would be behind me, and I'd be going. I'd hit a set of 10 in my last. So I would be doing 6 sets of 10. So at the last set, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to tell him, okay, I'm going to try to hit 10, give me 10. From there, I want you to give me 5 negatives. So I'm going to fight it like it's a wall coming down to crush me. I got to get in that mindset. And I want that weight just to crush me. And then he's going to lift it off of me. Same thing, I'm going to fight it again, all the way down. And I'm just going to keep doing that about 4 to 5 times at the end of my set. Now, if I'm doing, say, a split of 3 exercises, say like I'm doing incline bench, decline bench, flat bench, I'm going to keep it real simple. I would do the same thing on each one.
The last set of each exercise.
The last set of each one.
You're already in failure at this point.
At that point, I am...
Concentrically, you're already in failure.
I am telling myself in my head that a wall is crushing me.
Just to stop it from going...
Just to basically tap into whatever I have left.
Do you find, and this is what I've seen from watching a lot of the videos more recently as compared to training myself when I was younger in the 90s, that bodybuilders these days don't do the negative portion of the rep. They really, almost like it's the same speed. You don't see them going like this and then slow the negative and then going up and then slow. It seems like the style of training is going to lead to injuries.
That's a great point, and thank you for bringing that up. One of the other things that you really want to do is incorporate a count. So 1 up, 2 down, or one up, 1 hold, 2 down. I mean, by incorporating that count and understanding that you have 3 phases of it, you have the hold at the top, the movement up, and the movement down, you can program anything. You can say, okay, I want 3 seconds down. Now you have eccentric stuff happening in every single rep of every single exercise that you do.
And what's interesting about that too is if you look at the science behind it, as you slow down those reps, you're going to increase the time under tension. And the reason that's important is because if you look at the science of it, as you increase that time under tension, it's going to help with getting blood flow to those tendons. It's going to help with removal of those byproducts from waste. And so as you do all these things, it's going to help with the tendon health as well.
I used to do sets that the entire set was only negatives, but that means you can do a lot more weight. You think that's still okay for tendons, or do you think that's maybe putting too much strain on them? Do you ever do entire sets that are only negatives, or do you only use them at the end of a set?
Honestly, I like the idea. Like, I got to think about this, but I'm thinking that it might, if you're only ever doing negatives, this might lead to somebody getting injured. But I I need to actually.
And you
explore
agree?
this.
You agree?
Well,
You're nodding.
I wanted to ask you your opinion on, do you think that the timing, because we're talking about timing between the concentric and eccentric,
Sure, yeah.
should be double on the negative?
If you're trying to hit the to train the eccentric, so as we're talking eccentric training, if you're trying to do that, yeah, it needs to be double, or
Needs to
and
be
you
double.
could even lengthen it farther than that.
So what I was doing was I incorporated a style of training that you would go, let's say, 6 to 8 to hit failure. So you get that heavyweight, that 5 to 8, that heavyweight, which you usually don't get unless you power lift. And then from there, while you hit failure, so maybe you had a forced rep after 5 to help you get 6, okay? And then reps 7 and 8 is a drop. So immediately someone drops some weight, so you never stop. It's constant tension, just like you said, time under tension, the entire way. And after 6 reps, the other 6 reps that you get past that are all in negative. You're already in failure.
Yep.
So at that point right now, you're reducing the weight, staying in failure, keeping constant tension, building tendon strength, and at the same time, you're focusing on the negative, which I think is the proper way to do a complete set.
CrossFit is all about the concentric and fast movements, and they really don't spend any time in the eccentric, and they get the most injuries. Do you think that's related to not spending any time doing the concentric?
That's a great question.
I don't think it's related to that necessarily. I think it's more of the fact that they're doing a lot of explosive movements that you aren't necessarily doing in bodybuilding. When you're talking about Olympic lifting, it's high impact, high explosive type of movements, and so because of that, when you're doing it in a fatigued state, you are more likely to have injuries just because you're fatigued. And when everything's so technical, with like Olympic lifting, for example, when you're fatigued, your form's going to decrease, and it's situations like that when injuries occur.
All right. And do you do negatives, Bishop?
I'll always do negatives. That's like you guys been following me. That's kind of my coach Chris Dim's like whole formula for like developing negatives. It's always negatives, always positive. So we're always hitting the time under tension is kind of how we train.
You do. Your reps are kind of slow. You're very
Everything's
controlled.
slow. The weight's not even.
How about you ever do negatives where just someone lifts the weight off you and you let it down slow?
Well, generally, anybody that trains with me know I like to train by myself. So generally, I don't really get that benefit of it. We just kind of drop the weight, but that would be nice. But I like to work alone.
All right, another video coming up. Negative reps with Kane Bishop, and I will lift the 600 pounds off him so he can let it down slow.
So the back and chest workout. Super
I'll get a workout too. All right.
The CrossFit thing that you were talking about, I think another reason why a lot of those guys get injured is because they really don't have a way to warm up what they're doing. They're doing something that's not a traditional movement. So how do you warm up in that aspect? So sometimes they go into it and they're not able to warm up something and they get injured a lot easier than a bodybuilder could, because we spend time focusing on warming up and hopefully not getting injured. And with the exercise that he demonstrated, this could be a great way for bodybuilders not to have that rotator cuff injury that seems so common in this sport.
All right. Be swole and swole, friends of freedom, pioneers of human evolution.